All right, it's recording.
Okay, here we go.
Here we go.
Ready or not?
Ready or not, we're going to try this.
Okay.
All right, so I'll just start out with an official opening, and we'll get going.
Okay.
You have your thoughts prepared?
Nope.
Good. Who needs it? All right, hello everybody, and welcome to Nathan on Shuffle. And I've got a special episode here today. This is a special episode I'm doing with my friend Kevin here. We've been friends for a really long time, best friends. And so it's fun to have him here to talk a little bit. We're going to talk about Neal Morse albums. You know, I have quite a few on the wall behind us that I've selected. I thought it'd be fun. Kevin's in town for a Transatlantic concert that we're going to later this evening, so from when we're filming it. So we're excited about that, and so we thought it'd be fun to discuss a little bit of Neal Morse since we're seeing him with Transatlantic tonight in concert. So
yeah.
So before we get into the top five, we each have our list of top five, but I wanted to kind of introduce Kevin and how we know each other and just kind of how you got into Prog and Neal Morse. So, you know, we've been friends since, we were like 8 or 9 years old or something.
Yeah, 10 maybe.
10 maybe, yeah. And then, so we were really close best friends, and then Kevin's family moved away for a while, but we still kept in touch, even though we were separated.
My dad would come down to California on business trips still, and every time he did, or most of the times when he did, I'd come down with him and be here with Nathan. Yep. Yeah,
so we were able to stay in contact, saw each other at least every summer, I'd say, and then we ended up going to college together and reconnecting, and were roommates for a brief period, and had a lot of fun doing stuff together in college. And of course, I'm the one who introduced you to Prog, I would say, right?
Yeah.
So...
Yep.
That's kind of part of the origin story. So
I think specifically I was down visiting during the summer or something and staying with you.
Yeah.
And you were showing your dad a Spock's Beard concert on DVD. I think the Don't Try This at Home
Yeah, that's
concert.
Probably right. Yeah.
Yeah, so that was my very first taste of Prog. And it was different at the time.
Right.
I think my musical taste for most of my life aligned more with Jana's musical taste.
Sure.
But I remember loving Mouth of Madness and June by Spock's Beard. Right. And so we watched the concert with your dad at night, and the next day you were talking about the songs. I mentioned a couple of those, so you played Kindness of Strangers, I guess.
Yeah.
Is what you put on. And I still like those two songs the most. Some of the others I was like, what? But Mouth of Madness was just fun and quirky. I loved that. And June I thought was just very beautiful.
Awesome.
And then you sent me home with a copy of Snow, if I remember correctly.
Okay.
You knew that I was into musicals, and you thought, hey, this is a story, you would like this.
That makes sense.
You were right. The rest is history.
Yeah. So I think I knew you liked Trans-Siberian Orchestra. I think you had liked Beethoven's Last Night, which is kind of a story concept as well. So I thought this could be right up your alley too. And I think it was the right album to get you kind of hooked into it.
Yes, it was. You won.
So that started kind of us liking specifically Neal Morse music, you know, Spock's Beard, all of that stuff together, and then sharing different prog music as well just through the years. And now you watch my show and take some of my recommendations, I think.
Yep, I do.
And so, cool.
Yep.
We're both into Prog and Neal Morse, so... really fun. We've been to several Neal Morse and Neal Morse related concerts together throughout the years. That have been a lot of fun. Like specifically, I remember the Transatlantic one we did.
Yeah.
That was like one of my favorite concert experiences ever.
It was magical.
And what was fun too is we later got the DVD of the live concert and like watched it at the same time, even though we were in like separate states, but we watched it at the same time. We're like texting each other during it and like almost re-experiencing that whole concert all over again. So I just remember that pretty fondly.
Yep, that was awesome.
Yeah.
I love Disneyland, and I told Nate that watching the Transatlantic concert gave me that same magical feeling. It was just an out-of-this-world experience.
It was cool. Because I just figured Transatlantic were done because, you know, Neal Morse had left Spock's Beard and Transatlantic and went on to his own solo career and, like, based on his religious choices and things. And so I thought, you know, the chance of hearing new Transatlantic music was pretty much impossible. But when they reunited and did a tour and all that stuff, it was just like a dream come true for me. So
me too.
Now we get to see them again tonight, so that's really going to be fun, I think. So.
I'm so excited.
Yeah. So yeah, I thought since he's here, we should do a video together. I thought it would be fun to kind of count down our top 5 Neal Morse albums. But I thought since we probably have very similar lists, that we'd kind of break up these albums so that we both have separate lists that we're covering. I was going to have Kevin cover the Neal Morse Solo plus Neal Morse Band catalog, and then I'm going to cover all of the other bands that Neal's in, Transatlantic, Spock's Beard, Flying Colors, and all of that stuff, and do my top 5 of that. And we'll discuss each other's albums as well, I'm sure, because we love all these albums.
Yep.
So, I'm sure we'll have lots to say of each one. So I think you should start with your top 5, your number 5 pick for Neal Morse.
So number 5 is the hardest one to pick, actually, because it was which songs don't get to make the cut. Yeah. And you've talked about this on your channel before, how just because something is in a certain ranking doesn't mean it's a bad album.
Right.
There's just so many good albums, but you have to put them in some order.
Yeah, exactly.
And that was so hard for me. As I went through each of his albums going, but I love that one. I love that one too. And I love that one too.
Yeah.
But I finally decided my 5th place album is The Great Adventure by
awesome.
Neal Morse Band.
Great choice.
Yeah. It's just a fantastic album. It's, a companion to Similitude of a Dream. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of got a darker feel. And it has your typical spiritual message from Neal Morse. Yep. But I feel like it's something deeper than that, because the main character, Joseph, I think is his name. He says his name once, I don't remember.
That seems right. I think that's right.
I think that's right, yeah. But I feel like it's also overcoming bitterness and depression and just this whole journey with that. It's got some beautiful pieces like Dark Melody.
Oh, yeah.
And then on the second CD, during the song Freedom Calling, they harken back to that. And, he sings, "My love is greater than your dark melody," or something to that effect.
Yeah.
And I just think it's so beautiful. And so the album to me is not just the story, but also a journey of overcoming those negative feelings. And the musicianship, the Neal Morse Band, there's nothing negative to say about the Neal Morse Band.
Yeah.
Musicianship is top notch. I love the diversity of the singing and the voices in it.
Yeah.
Each member of the band gets to shine. It's a solid album. It's great.
That's true. Yeah. Yeah, it's really cool with Neal Morse Band how they have like the different singers and they do all the harmonies and different melodies. And like I think it's cool that it kind of brought a new element to like Neal Morse's sound, that he was able to add this collaboration with these other members who are all equally incredible. And so it's really brought a new dimension to his music that I really like. And yeah, Great Adventure is fantastic. It's always been a favorite of mine too. Just amazing that they could pull off like another double album that's like Similitude, but it's just as good, and it continues the story in the same way. It has some callbacks to Similitude, and I love all of that stuff, and all of the musical callbacks to not just that, but within itself, that it continues to have repeating themes. And I'm really a big fan of that album as well. So my number 5, this was hard for me too, obviously. And I was trying to cover all the different bases with my list. So number 5, maybe a surprising choice, but I'm picking Third Degree by Flying Colors as my 5th choice. So, because I wanted to have Flying Colors represented, because I think they're a really cool group. And for me, their best album was their latest one, the Third Degree album. I thought it was a great blend of their kind of prog styles, but also having a bit of that kind of poppier sound. I like Casey McPherson's vocals that he does on there. Steve Morse has some great guitar playing. And I just love all the tracks on it. Last Train Home is one of my favorite songs in the last few years. I just think it's really fantastic. It's just the perfect blend of like all their styles, and there's some proggy parts to it, but also some great melodies, and it's really beautiful. So I just really like that one a lot, and think they really found that perfect balance of what they're going for. And I love the other 2 records as well. It's all really good stuff, but I just was really impressed with what they were able to accomplish on their 3rd album.
Yeah. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
One thing I love about Neal Morse is how involved he is with so many projects as well. And because of that, I love Neal Morse, so if he's part of another group, I'm going to listen to that group. And
right.
Hence Flying Colors. And yeah, I totally agree. And Last Train Home.
Yeah, to me that's
fantastic.
Like one of my favorites. Yeah, just kind of a perfect song for me. And I love Cadence is another like one of my favorites off of that. Just perfectly constructed and just really beautiful. So just a real highlight for me. And I love these side projects too. I wanted to mention too it didn't make my cut of my list, but I love the new Troika album as well. That's another new collaboration with Neal Morse and Nick DiVirgilio and Ross Jennings, which is also really great. So,
yeah,
but just barely missed out for this list, but really cool stuff.
5's too few.
Too few, yeah.
But otherwise this video would be 6 hours long or something like that.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out just the right number where it wouldn't be crazy long, but I think this works. All right, so number 4 on your list?
Number 4 is this one right here.
Yeah.
Neal Morse Testimony.
Perfect.
And this was the first album that I got to listen to when it came out. This was when we started college together, is when this album came out. I guess that dates us a little bit. Oops. Especially now, I didn't realize this back then, but now just knowing Neal had just left Spock's Beard, just left Transatlantic, right after putting out 2 incredible albums.
Right.
And the only solo Neal Morse albums we had were his self-titled album and It's Not Too Late.
Yeah.
And so here he's doing his 3rd solo album, technically, really his first of the next lineup, but what were we going to get? Spock's Beard was over, Transatlantic was over, as far as the Neal era, or so it seemed at the time. I'm glad that Transatlantic was not over.
Right.
And what were we going to get? And this is what we got.
Yeah.
And oh my goodness, is it amazing? Just to know what we could still expect from Neal, what we're going to get from him, and talking about melodies that are called back and repeated.
Yeah.
He does this expertly on this album, and there's so much I could talk about. When I hear the music get started with the overture, this first few notes, I just get so excited. I'm going to love listening to this all over again. And I struggled even driving over here. Should I... Is 4th too low for this album? Because it's so well done, especially for what it means. Mm-hmm. And I love that it wasn't just a solo album, but they got Randy George and Mike Portnoy to help out. And, they gave suggestions. And I think, if I remember correctly, Neal was going to take out a bridge in one of his songs, and Mike paid him $50 to keep it in. He was like, "You need to keep this in here." And
right.
So he did, and Neal later said, "Yeah, Mike was right." Having Randy George and Mike Portnoy helping him out was a predecessor to what would become the Neal Morse Band.
Sure.
But just, it's a fantastic album, and gave us hope that we could expect great things from Neal still, and he continues to not disappoint.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, it's meaningful to me for very much the same reason. It's like I had just gotten into this fantastic music that was my new favorite stuff. Spock's Beard was my new favorite band, and just when I was getting into it, Neal Morse left the band, and I'm like, how could this be? It was just so disappointing. But hearing he was going to do Testimony, it was okay, so at least he's going to continue making music, but what is it going to be like? Is it going to be still prog? Is he going to do something totally different? Is it going to be stuff that I like? But, all of those fears were kind of washed away hearing the record and being okay, he's still doing the same kind of prog music done to almost another level and just bringing in his own personal experience and stories to it. And so it was okay, it's in good hands. Things are going to be okay. And Spock's Beard, continued on in their own way too, so it was almost like you got two bands out of one. So it wasn't as bad as I was afraid it might be when he left. So I was breathing a sigh of relief. And I remember this album coming out my first year in college, and just listening to it constantly, walking through the campus and such, and just really a fun album to get into. And like you said, just has those same repeating themes and just great storytelling, and it kind of provided that blueprint of all that was to come for his solo work, with his concept albums and having these musicians come on board like Mike Portnoy, and just like really having these expansive concepts that really work well. And I really appreciate that record too for what it did.
I have to say too, I know some people weren't happy with how explicitly spiritual he's gone in his new direction, but you can't deny the joy and how genuine he is when he sings it too. And no matter what your beliefs are, you just feel how much joy it brings him and how he just loves to put it into music.
Definitely.
And I think it's beautiful.
Yeah, that's what I've always thought is like, I think an artist should do what they're most passionate about and what means the most to them. And obviously this is what means the most to Neal. And so that's what he's going to express. And I would want him to be able to really embrace his artistry by talking about what means the most to him, because that's what brings forth the best art, I think. Yeah. And so that's led to all these great albums. So can't complain.
Exactly.
So my number 4 choice, which, you know, we're probably going to say this every time, but this was a hard choice. Because I wanted to bring in something like classic Spock's Beard into my list. But there's a lot of great contenders, obviously, because I love every Spock's Beard album. But I think I'm going to go with Beware of Darkness as my number 4, which wasn't what it was kind of switched out at the last minute. I was between this and 5, but I kind of wanted to go more kind of the classic older albums for my pick. And I just have loved Beware of Darkness more and more as I listen to it more, and it just brings back such strong feelings of me getting into the band and being excited, like listening to The Doorway for the first time and being so blown away by that piece of music, and just the piano opening and just leading into this really fantastic song that just has such a great sing-along chorus and so many different instrumental things and movements, and it's really one of my favorite songs of all time. And I love the title track that opens it. I love Thoughts, which was one of the first Spock's Beard things I ever heard, which was kind of what grabbed me into the band, because it, you know, brought back that spirit of Gentle Giant. That was a band my dad really loved and showed me, and I'm like, okay, there's modern bands that can do that stuff that Gentle Giant did way back in the 70s. And I love the epic at the end, Time Has Come. Walking on the Wind has become like one of my all-time favorite prog tracks as well, which I did a reaction with Jana over that one, I remember. So it's just really shows the spirit of that classic lineup of Spock's Beard and their early stages, just really having that vibrancy and energy and the perfect balance of great songwriting from Neal, great, you know, catchy hooks and songwriting, and just really expertly done, but a lot of that playful instrumental stuff that they do as well. And I think it just all came together. I love The Light, but I feel like this kind of took The Light and refined it a little bit, where The Light, you know, it's their first album, so it's a little bit rougher to me, even though it has those classics like the title track, The Light and such. But I feel like Beware of Darkness is where they took it to kind of the next level and really showcase their craft in that album. So it's always been a favorite.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm not an expert, but Rio was not a member of the band in The Light, but he did join on for Beware of Darkness.
Yes, I believe that's true. Yeah, I don't think he played on The Light, but they brought him for like live performances, and then decided to bring him totally into the band for Beware of Darkness. Yeah.
So, although The Light is the first Spock's Beard album, Beware of Darkness is the first full band lineup of the classic Neal era, really.
I think that's fair, yeah.
Yep.
So that's, part of why I think that one's kind of an important album for their career.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree with everything you said.
Cool.
Yep, it's beautiful.
Awesome. All right, so your third pick, I think.
My third pick might surprise you. I don't know.
Okay.
My third pick is Sola Scriptura.
Oh, awesome.
I love how different this album is from the albums that preceded it. And if I remember correctly, Neal was going to open up with this lighter beginning, and Mike said, let's just start right in with the heavy stuff.
Yes.
Again, I love how much input Mike has.
Right.
And that Mike isn't just a fantastic musician and friend, but also a fan of Neal Morse at the same time.
Sure.
And just what an influence that has on the music. And it does just start right into it. And it's an album with 4 tracks, and 3 of them are epics.
Yeah.
How can you complain? It's so great. The Door is amazing. The Conflict has so many fun movements in it, and such a variety of the of the type of music as well.
Yeah.
And then the conclusion, we just talked about this. No pun intended, it's one of my favorite conclusions to an album, to a concept album.
Yeah.
The way that it calls back elements from The Door and from The Conflict, but changes the lyrics now and changes how the music is used. And one thing I love about Neal is the emotion he sings with, the passion that he brings into it. His playing, you can see him live, the passion he brings into it, playing the instruments, but then his passion when he sings as well is just amazing. And I feel like in Sola Scriptura, you get that. Yeah. And you get it at full blast. It's just amazing. And it brings me to chills every time. And I listen to the whole album in its entirety and I get to the conclusion. It's harkening back to the Already Home part, towards the end of the song. And it's like I've died and gone to heaven. It's just amazing. It's so amazing and so well crafted, and that's why it's beat other albums to be in the third spot for me, because of just how well crafted it is. Awesome. It's amazing.
That's so cool. Yeah, it's always been a favorite of mine. I always thought that I probably liked it a bit more than you because I like maybe more heavier styles and such. But it's really cool to hear that you have it so high on your list. So yeah. Really cool. Since the moment this came out, it's been a favorite. Just like you said, how it just jumps right into it and just is heavy from the outset. And there's so many crazy movements and moments, and the instrumentals are crazy, and just like some insane guitar playing all throughout. It's a really great album that's a lot of fun to listen to and has a lot of meaning and emotion, and just is kind of the perfect encapsulation of everything Neal does so well. So I'm really thrilled that that's so high on your list. It'd probably land similarly if I did that list. So nice. Really cool. So my next choice is number 3 on my list. I'm going to go with Snow by Spock's Beard as my third. It was one of the first major concept albums that I really fell in love with, and like you kind of talked about at the beginning, it's kind of one I showed to you early on. Yep. That kind of hooked you in because you liked that conceptual story and stuff that brought you kind of into the music, I think, as a fan of like musicals and things like that. And I love the story. I love everything about the musicianship, and just it's that classic Spock's Beard lineup, and they're just playing so well versus each other, and it's just has all these elements to it that I really enjoy. Some great shorter songs, but they all connect together in such a perfect way. There's so many great moments, and it has such a great epic kind of conclusion as well that just really heartfelt and meaningful. And you get this whole journey of this character from like trying to help people, and then he kind of falls and has this really low moment, and then like kind of needs to be lifted up from those depths of all the bad things he's feeling. It's very relatable of like, when you have your low moments and you feel like there's no one who cares for you, and everyone is down on you, but then you're able to be lifted up by those that you've helped and by, the people in your life. So I thought it was just a really meaningful concept, and it was one of the first prog albums I really got and connected with back when I was discovering the genre. I just remember picking this one up. I think my grandparents bought it for me as a Christmas gift, if I remember right, and it just like immediately was one of my favorites just from the opening overture, and I just really thought this was a great expression of the band and a great kind of note to end on for the Neal Morse era of Spock's Beard. Just kind of go out with this big double album concept that really harkens back to a lot of the classic, like Lamb Lies Down Broadway and those classic kind of concept albums. So it was their version of that, and I thought it just was expertly done in every way.
I love it. I mean, as I said earlier, Snow was the first album I listened to alone.
Yeah.
In its entirety. When I listen to brand new music, I have to be doing something that doesn't require any brain work, so I can actually pay attention to the music. Yeah. Otherwise, I get lost. Sure. My mind wanders too much.
Yeah.
And so I can still remember playing card games on my computer, playing Snow while doing that, and just listening to the whole album and loving it and getting caught up in all the emotion of it. And for me, it was my first time being exposed to a lot of these classic prog elements. Mm-hmm. I did things in reverse. I heard Neal Morse doing the voice overlaps, like in Thoughts and songs like that.
Yeah.
And then he showed me Gentle Giant. Well, this is what Neal's doing. Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Right.
But yeah, it's beautiful, and it hooked me forever. I owe my love for Prog to the album Snow.
Awesome.
Yep.
Well, it's a pretty important one then.
Yep.
Yeah, and it's important to me for the same reason, for like seeing you embrace it and like bringing my best friend into this great music that I love. Because, you know, I didn't have anyone back then that knew this music like I did, and I felt kind of alone and appreciating it. And so it was special to be able to have a friend that I could talk and gush about this music with, you know. And so it's meaningful to me for that reason, that, you know, it's what kind of connected you into this world and made us have this kind of connection that we could bond over and talk about all these years and go to all these concerts and stuff. Very special album.
Yes, it is.
All right, so what, your number 2,
Number
right?
2. This is probably really going to surprise you. My number 2 is 1, ironically enough.
It's confusing.
Yep. And I say it will surprise you because, you know, 1 was my favorite album by Neal Morse.
That's true.
For years
I would have thought 1 would be
and
1.
years. Yep. You would think. And again, talking about album formatting, another album with, I would say, epic length songs throughout. I don't know what time frame designates it as an epic or not.
Yeah.
I say 10 minutes.
Yeah, over 10 minutes.
We're getting there.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we have The Creation, which is a fantastic song.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember us talking about how it sounded like Transatlantic. How, again, before the band got back together, we're like, oh, this is a taste of what that sound is. And then we have a quieter song, The Man's Gone. And then we get Author of Confusion, which is just fun and heavy, but then with breaks of calm. And then back to the heavy.
Yeah.
And then The Separated Man, which is just a genius song. It was not my favorite when I first listened to it. I didn't hate it, but it was just another song on the album. But with every time I listened to it, just I recognized more and more of the genius behind that song. Yeah. I love it. And Cradle to the Grave, you know, is a very special song to me. I love the emotion in that song. And you know, just the feeling of how sometimes we judge ourselves, that, you know, in this song, for example, God doesn't want me because I've fallen too far or whatever, when the whole time God is saying, no, I do want you, just come back to me, you know? And again, I think that connects on so many levels too, where we judge ourselves and, oh, other people think this about me and they think the worst about me, and other people are like, no, I really don't, you know? We're always our worst critics, and I just love that song because you get the two sides of that. I think it's a beautiful ballad in the middle of the album.
Definitely.
And then we get Help Me, which is another longer song. Father Forgiveness quiets down again. Mm-hmm. And then Reunion, it comes back. It's just like long, strong song, quiet song, long, strong song, long, strong song, quiet song, long, strong song.
Right.
It's such a well-constructed album. And if I remember correctly, Neal was pushing his limits on how much a CD could even hold.
Yeah.
He really wanted to keep it to one disc, but was really struggling to keep it to one disc at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a bunch of like bonus songs that were going to originally be part of the album, but yeah, they had to kind of cut it down to fit one disc, I think.
Yeah.
So.
And of course I bought the bonus disc so I could have those other songs.
Right.
But I love it, and you know that. One has been my favorite album by Neal Morse for solo Neal Morse, to clarify.
Yeah.
For so long, and it will always be very near and dear to my heart.
Yeah, I love it too. It's ranked high on my list as well. Yeah, I think it's just perfectly constructed, as you were saying, just the great balance between the epic side of Neal Morse and just these big, great epics with a lot of different cool proggy instrumental sections, but then balanced with these kind of shorter ballads and things that bring the emotional center to the album in a lot of ways, and just takes you on a journey, and is a great concept, and just has so many great moments that just throughout the whole album, it's just kind of perfect for me. Yeah, and I feel like you've helped me gain a greater appreciation even for like The Separated Man, which I didn't think was a standout until like you mentioned how much you love that one, and now I recognize it as one of the best tracks on the album for sure. I was always high on The Creation as one of my favorite tracks, which I still am. It's one of my all-time favorite songs, and so just perfect how it's sets the scene and has this great extended instrumental opening that kind of you can visualize what they're going for. I love music that like they're trying to paint this picture and they're able to do it effectively with just music. They don't even have to include the words of what's happening, and you could just kind of imagine what's going on in the scene of this, the aspect of creation and all of this. So I just always thought that was really cool, and that's partially why I love progressive rock, is because it has extended instrumental sections that allows you to kind of paint the picture in your mind of what they're trying to build. And I think it's so cool how they have the time and space and the different length. They can have it be as long as they need to really do that effectively. So I just always appreciated that element of it. So really great.
Yeah.
My number 2 is going to be The Whirlwind by Transatlantic.
Nice.
So just as we were kind of talking at the beginning, I just remember this album coming out, and it was such a surprise that there was little like rumors I was hearing of people like saw all of Transatlantic together in the airport or something, and I was like,
I remember that.
Probably like a April Fool's joke or something. Like, it didn't seem real. I was very skeptical, but as it continued and seemed more and more like it really was happening, I was just getting more and more excited. And it was just one of the most exciting moments for me was this, because Spock, Spirit, and Transatlantic were always like my favorite groups, and I was never really able to experience them live, like with that classic lineup with Neal, because he had broken up with them by the time I got into those bands. And so to think that they were going to create new material that I could be excited over, and that they were going to go on tour with it and all that stuff, it was just like mind-blowing that this could be happening. And I was so excited, and the record came out, and it was really amazing, and I just was so into it. And the more I listened to it, the more I liked it. And it's kind of the perfect concept album where it all kind of flows seamlessly, almost like it's one piece. I think the band kind of considers it just one giant, like, near 80-minute song that just is super epic, and has so many great sections and moments. Just the opening overture is one of my favorite musical sections in all of the prog that I listen to. Just, it just goes through all these different movements that you're going to hear later on the album and flows seamlessly from one to the next, and you're getting more and more excited because there's all such great melodies and great moments. And then it flows right into the main song of The Whirlwind, the opening, and it's just really cool. And it just has so many fun moments, so many great, sections, some sung by Neal, some sung by Roy and Stolt. It has a great balance between their two styles of writing, I think. I love Rose-Colored Glasses is always like a very meaningful, special song that I think Neal wrote about his father who passed away. So it's really a meaningful, heartfelt song that just it really packs an emotional punch, and even was a bigger emotional punch hearing it live, where it just like really shook me when I heard it. And that's the other thing, hearing this album live when we saw the show, like, really brought it up to another level too. I'm like, this is even better than I even thought it was. Some songs that I thought were weaker were now some of my favorites.
Yep.
Like The Wind Blew Them All Away used to be, I thought that was one of the weaker parts of the album, but hearing it live, I'm like, oh, this is an incredible part of the album. I love this too. And it just ends with this epic conclusion that Neal Morse does so expertly on all of these albums, just like a heavenly section that really brings the message of the album home. And just, I really love every moment of it. It's just so fun. I love the section, I have to mention it, of Is It Really Happening?
Is It Really Happening?
Yeah, Is It Really Happening? Where towards the second half, it just builds and builds with this like fast instrumental section that somehow they just keep doing it faster and faster. And it's like this really crazy display of like fun musicianship. And I just always get so excited hearing that section. And seeing it live as well was just really fun. And so just so much to love about this album. I really, really love it.
I agree. Yep. I mean, just the album starts off so slow. You know, you hear the voices of the people.
Yeah.
And the music slowly starts building, and then it just crescendos so rapidly. Just the they're just, you know, building up, and then bam, we're here with this amazing album for you. And that first bam moment is just, you know, you're just immersed in the music. It's amazing. And I remember our experience with The Wind Blew Them All Away. I didn't want to say anything because I'm not as much of a musical expert. And I remember being blown away seeing it live and thinking, this song's amazing, but not wanting to say anything to you, because I thought you'd say, well, duh, you didn't know that was good before. And I think you said something first, and I thought, oh, good, it wasn't just me.
Yeah.
But that was, seeing it live was amazing. And seeing Neal perform Rose-Colored Glasses, just his face and the meaning to him. You listen to the album and you think, this can't get any better. And then you see them perform it live and you go, oh, it's better.
Yeah.
And I remember with Is It Really Happening, when we saw it live, Daniel Gildenlow comes and helps out with their live tours. And I remember him posting on social media that he just wanted to beat that song with the big stick because it was giving him so much trouble.
Yeah.
But they nailed it. Nailed it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing.
I'm so excited for a concert tonight. Can I just say that?
Yeah. Me too. Maybe that's what made me want to pick Transatlantic albums this high on my list to make. I'm just really excited.
Yep.
Not to spoil my number one, but yeah.
It better be a number one, or else we're gonna have words after this video.
But before that, your number one.
My number one is the Neal Morse Merry Christmas album.
All right. Perfect choice.
It is Similitude of a Dream.
Awesome.
Which I think I saw. Yep, right there.
Above your head, yeah.
When it first came out, I loved it, but one was still my favorite Neal Morse album.
Uh-huh.
And then I kept listening to Similitude, and it kept creeping up higher and higher. Then they were about equal, and I was like, they're both just fantastic. And now it's past one.
Oh, wow.
Just with every listen, it gets better and better, and I pick up on things that maybe I didn't pick up on before. And maybe it's unfair because it's 2 discs, and one is only 1 disc. If one was 2 discs, maybe it would beat it. But then I look at songs that are on the bonus CD, such as, I think Back to the Garden.
Yeah. And
it's a beautiful song, but it doesn't stand up to some of the songs on the second disc of Similitude.
Right. Fair enough.
So Similitude wins. But I still love one.
Sure.
So I already talked about The Great Adventure, and so Similitude kicks it all off.
Yeah.
The first concept album with the Neal Morse Band. And did you notice that all my top 5 albums are concept albums?
Yeah.
I'm not going to excuse myself. It is what it is.
There is a high amount of concept albums to choose from, so partially it's just Neal Morse's thing. That's what he does.
Yep, which works out for me. I won't complain.
Yeah.
But again, the journey it takes you on and the diversity of the songs. I mean, on the second disc, just one reason why it beats one is you get Shortcut to Salvation, which is maybe more of a poppy feel, but still very fun. And then you get Man in the Iron Cage, which is a lot heavier, and I love that song a lot.
Sure.
Then you get a little bridge between that and Sloth, which is just so different from anything else.
Right.
And I remember we got to see this concert live.
Yeah.
And they were even slower than the album. It was so funny, because I remember watching it and going, and this is when he says the next word on the album, and he's still dragging it out.
Right.
It was just so fun, and it's always fun live. It just is.
Yeah.
But then the conclusion as well to that album is just so great, and the journey he goes on, the mask, the battle, and then just the concluding song, Broken Sky, Long Day, is just it's so amazing. It's so beautiful, and again, that's that emotion, and it's the payoff, I feel like, of the whole album. We've had pieces of it like building up to that, and now we get the payoff of the whole journey and reaching that conclusion, and it's amazing and it's beautiful, and that's my number one album now. So good job, Neal Morse Band.
Good job. You did it. You topped yourself.
Yep.
Yeah, I love that album. It's one of my top 2, so no complaints. I'd have a tough time between the 2 as well, one and Similitude, but yeah, it's excellent. I think, the finale, that Broken Sky, Long Day, Reprise, all that, maybe my top favorite Neal Morse ending ever. Just the epicness of it, how it brings back the big themes, and it gets me every time. Listening to that the first time, I was so emotional listening to it, and this is just next level. How did they come up with this and like build it to this perfect point and bring all this emotion and just perfectly wrap up the story in that way? Just like that, like, come on moment, you know, just is perfect. So I love, like you were talking about, the diversity of the album. Like, there's so many different songs and they're all their own thing. They're all unique in their own ways, a lot of different styles and different things, but they all work together as one complete story. And it kind of makes sense on this journey as he's visiting these different characters that are teaching him different lessons as he's going on his journey. So really just a perfect album for sure. Just front to back, and to do it on this big, like, double disc where there's no weak moments, it's just perfect. It's an incredible feat of the band that they were able to pull this album off. So, and
again, correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't Mike, after they finished disc 1, Mike was like, well, that's a great album, and Neal was like, the story's not over yet. We have to do one more disc. Yeah,
I think they were kind of fighting over it in the studio of, like, you know, Mike wanted it to just be a single album, but Neal was pressing it like, no, there's more to tell, and I'm going to come up with more. And so, but the conclusion was, when all was said and done, Mike, like, agreed, okay, now I see what you were going for. And listening to the whole album, this is like a masterpiece. So I'm happy we continued it and made it a double album.
Me too. I was talking about Mike's other suggestions, and he was right on all of those, but he was wrong on this one. Neal was right. The double album. Yeah. You can't beat it.
Yeah. And he kind of did the same thing again with Great Adventure.
Yep.
So funny. But I think Mike, after learning the lesson from Similitude, was more like, okay, I'm going to let Neal have his decision now. It probably will turn out okay. So
I think okay is not quite strong enough of a word.
Right. All right, my number one, pretty predictable. I've probably mentioned is the number one album on prior shows and such, but my number one is Bridge Across Forever from Transatlantic. Probably my all-time favorite album. It's hard to top. You know, it's stayed at the top of my list for so long because it's just such the perfect prog album for me. It just has all the elements that I love about prog, and it's that first perfect album that really captured me. Just every moment of it is just so great. And it's just 4 songs, essentially, but they're all excellent in their own ways and perfectly kind of work together to make this perfect whole of the album. Even though I don't know if you necessarily call it totally a concept album in the same way as some of these others. Like, it doesn't really tell this continuous story about characters, but thematically kind of all ties together, and musically with different callbacks throughout the different songs. Just, it makes me feel like it just really stands really well together as an album. And that's what I'm always looking for when I'm ranking these albums, is albums, you know, there may be an album that I like all the songs on it and it's a really cool album, but it takes it to the next level for me when the album connects as one singular piece of work. Like, every song kind of works together to create something better than the pieces. You know, the sum is greater than these different parts of the album. So, but yeah, it has 2 of my favorite epics of all time. Duel with the Devil starts the album, and then Stranger in Your Soul closes the album. Just perfect bookends to this because they're both epic. They both contain all of the hallmarks of Neal Morse's writing and Royna Stoltz's additions into the band, and the emotion that they convey through the lyrics, and just the storytelling and all of that stuff is perfect. They're just all playing at the top of their game. Just the musicianship is incredible. I love all the instrumental sections, the big epic kind of opening of Duel with the Devil, that the opening like string section as well that kind of opens both songs and connects them together. And then you have the Sweet Charlotte Pike, which is just a lot of fun and has like so many different pieces and sections too. I remember in the live version they would add like pieces of Abbey Road, you know, the second side of that. And it kind of has that same feeling. It adds a cool break of fun into the album that I think is really cool. And then the Bridge Across Forever, the title track, is just kind of this really beautiful Neal Morse ballad, one of his best. It's just so beautiful and heartfelt, and just kind of provides the perfect break between all these epic tracks. And so it's just well constructed. I love the message of Stranger in Your Soul. It's just, you know, about awakening your deeper meaning and like coming to finding your purpose in life. And it's kind of the perfect version of Neal Morse's kind of spiritual journey, but done in a way that's really universal. And I think a lot of people can interpret it to have meaning for them in their personal lives, however whatever it means to them. I think that's a great sign of a great written song, that you can interpret it to mean a lot to you and how you feel about things in your life. So just it's had a lot of meaning to me, and it really like solidified my passion for this kind of music, and just was everything for me. And really I think the first modern prog song I heard was Duel with the Devil, when I was trying to get into this newer prog music after my dad had introduced me to all the classics. So this was like the first gateway into this world, and it was like, couldn't be more epic than that to find this album, Duel with the Devil, that song, and just like become obsessed with it from there. So perfect album for me.
Yep. It would be my top album as well. So if you don't count it as a concept album, my top album is not a concept album. It breaks the trend.
Okay.
Now, I remember Transatlantic is my favorite band because of this album.
Yeah.
And I remember first listening to it, and songs that were more than 20 minutes long was just like, what? To me.
Yeah.
But I loved Duel with the Devil, and I fell in love with that one immediately, I remember. And then I did Sweet Charlotte Pike, I did Bridge Across Forever, and you're like, yeah, the last song's also 30 minutes. So I put it off, and I would listen to the first 3 songs, and I'd be done. I was almost scared to listen to this 30-minute song. And I remember the night that I finally listened to Stranger in Your Soul. It's a very special moment for me.
Yeah.
I remember I was in my dad's office at home, and we were chatting online, probably on AOL Messenger way back then.
Yeah, that sounds right.
And I finally played it, and the beginning is very similar to Duel with the Devil.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, I like this. And then the drums start.
Uh-huh.
And then everything else starts. And that first chord, that matches with the first spoken word, once, not so long ago. It's that first chord for once.
Yeah.
It gets you, So I listened to the full song, all 30 minutes of it. And then I played it again. And then I played it again. And then I played it again. I listened to the same song for 2 hours straight because I was blown away by it. And I was kind of mad at myself that I put off listening to it for so long.
Right.
Like, why did I deprive myself of this incredible piece of music?
Uh-huh.
And it's my favorite song, easy, at the top of my list.
Yeah.
Stranger in Your Soul. It has everything. Everything you'd want in a song is in that. And it's the super group Transatlantic playing at their absolute best. And once again, you see it live, and you see Neal move into Mike's spot on the drums and take over with not a beat skipped and everything else.
Yeah.
And just the fun they have playing it. It's amazing. And I still love Duel with the Devil.
Sure.
And Bridge Across Forever is so beautiful. And my favorite version of Sweet Charlotte Pike is the live version.
Right.
It has Abbey Road mixed into it, which makes it 30 minutes. So,
Yep.
It's a master album. And they found a way to make it even better live. I mean, how do you do that?
Yeah.
But they did. They did. And it's amazing. And it's everything I love about Prog.
Awesome. Yeah, that was really cool to hear you get into it, because I get nervous showing people things, and like, is he going to hate this? Is 30 minutes going to be way too long, and won't like that length of a song and all of that kind of stuff. But yeah, I was just blown away when he said he repeated listening to that for so long. Like, okay, he must like it at least a little bit if you listen to it 4 times in a row. So that was like the moment where I'm like, okay, I hooked him in. Yeah.
Yep.
I have a fellow Prog fan here, so
Good
really
friends
cool.
don't let friends not listen to Prog.
Yeah. That's a good idea. Yeah, good point. All right, so those are our lists. I was going to say any honorable mentions, but that'd be every other album.
Yep. What else has Neal done? They're all honorable mentions.
So maybe we probably don't need to go there. But yeah, just so many incredible albums, and so it was a lot of fun talking through these, and I love your list. It was really perfect. Really probably very similar to mine.
Awesome.
So really
I
cool.
loved your list as well. I was surprised that 5 didn't make the list.
Yeah.
Or V, or I never know what to call some of those albums.
Yeah.
I was shocked that did not make your list.
Yeah,
but I'm thrilled that Beware of Darkness did.
It was on my original version, but then I kind of switched it in the last moment. So
should we tell the funny story about The Great Nothing, though? Just for fun?
Sure.
So one time, driving from college to California, probably for a Disney trip.
Yeah.
We were listening to Prog the whole way down. And at the time, I was working an early morning job. And I was working 2 jobs at the time, I think.
Probably, yeah.
I was constantly tired. 2 jobs, going to school full time.
Yeah.
When we were roommates, we'd have a conversation. I'd be the one talking, and I'd fall asleep in the middle of me talking. That's how tired I was.
Yeah.
And so we're driving down, and we're listening to all the Spock Spirit albums, and we get to 5, and we make it to The Great Nothing, and I fell asleep. And I just remember you going, "How can you sleep during this song?"
Yeah.
I do love the song, for the record. I love The Great Nothing. I cannot control myself.
That's understandable. When you have the kind of schedule you have, that makes sense.
Yep.
Yeah, this was a lot of fun. Thanks for coming on. I know it could be a little nerve-wracking to do this for the first time, but I think we had a lot of fun.
Definitely. I did. Thanks for having me. It was a pleasure.
Awesome. So thank you guys for watching this. Hopefully you enjoyed this discussion on Neal Morse and his related bands and albums. And if you haven't yet, subscribe and join us on this journey. It's a fun channel. I try to include all sorts of prog music and discussion and news, and have shows with my wife, and we just have a lot of fun here, and we just try to promote enjoying the music and just enjoying whatever you like listening to. You know, there's no judgment or anything. You know, I just like promoting good quality music is what I'm all about. So,
which is why I love your channel.
Awesome. So thank you guys so much, and hopefully you'll catch me in another video sometime soon. So thank you guys, and that's it. Bye.
Bye.